Okay, everyone. So the newest chapter of the Boruto to Blue Vortex manga is almost here, which means, as always, we have the full spoilers for the chapter. Now, like I usually do with these full spoiler videos, I'm not actually going to talk about everything that we have. I'm going to be talking about some of it, and as always, my full thoughts on the chapter are going to be in the official chapter review, which hopefully should be out on the day that the chapter actually gets released, which I think, if I remember correctly, is on the 19th of this month. So make sure to look out for that one. If you want to know my thoughts on the whole chapter, it will be in the full chapter review. But as for this video, I'm going to be going over some of the things that we do have here. So first of all, let's talk about what we have at the beginning of the chapter. So first thing we see is Boruto flying to Mamushi and basically telling him that if you want Ada, then you're going to have to follow me. Now, if you don't remember, in the last chapter, Shikamaru's plan was for Ada to act as bait for Mamushi because Mamushi is consistently cloning himself. He's making way too much for them to handle. And so his plan is to use Ada as bait to lure them all into one location to essentially make it easier for them to deal with. And based on what we see here with these spoilers, the location that they lead them to is a place where there are no civilians and there are no buildings for them to actually destroy, which obviously works in their favor because it was mentioned that Jura does like the Hidden Leaf Village, and if something happens to it, whether it's Mamushi or even if it's due to the actions of one of the Konoha Shinobi, even if it was indirectly, it's going to anger him, which obviously would not be good for, just everyone basically. Mamushi doesn't want to piss him off because, Mamushi knows how strong Jura actually is. Same with the Konoha Shinobi, and they were warned by Koji that the last thing you want to do is piss off Jura because once he's pissed off, it's basically game over. Because he even said that there's essentially no one on the planet who can stop him. Now, whether that's still true with the update that he got during the mission to the Land of Wind, we don't actually know. But as of now, we don't have any actual information that says that there's anyone who can actually stop him. We do know Boruto has a plan with Momoshiki. He has that deal where if he takes down Jura, then or if he is allowed to use Momoshiki's power without having to be afraid of Momoshiki taking over, then and if he manages to take down Jura, then the deal is Momoshiki gets his body. So whether that's actually going to contribute to Jura being taken down, we're going to have to wait and see. But we don't have any information yet that says that Boruto with Momoshiki's power can take out Jura on his own. Personally, I don't think that's the case because if that was true, then Koji would have just told Boruto, hey, make a deal with Momoshiki. Or I think actually, no, sorry. If I remember correctly, maybe he did. Or he knows Boruto made a deal with Momoshiki, but I don't know if that was part of the original plan. Because if Koji looked into the future and saw the one where Jura gets destroyed and all it took was Boruto using Momoshiki's power, then I think he would have just told him that. And if it did require him to make the deal with Momoshiki that Momoshiki gets his body, then they would have also come up with a plan for Boruto to be dealt with if that actually does happen. I don't know. That just seems like what would happen. Just based on everything we've seen from both Kashi and Koji and Boruto, how they move with the information they get from 10 Directions. But right now, we don't have any information that actually says that Jura can be taken down just by Boruto and adding Momoshiki's power onto him. That's just speculation that we're going to have to make, at this point. But we do see Boruto leading Mamushi and all of his clones to the location where Ada is. Now, one thing that I do want to point out, and I actually haven't seen a lot of people talk about this, is we see the Mamushi clones flying. Now, we did see them fly during that brief interaction they had with Kawaki a couple of chapters ago. And honestly, I haven't really seen many people talk about it. Like, we haven't seen any of the other Shinju clones demonstrate that they have the ability to fly. We know Jura can fly. We've seen that multiple times. We literally saw it during his debut in chapter, I think it was chapter 4. It may have been chapter 4 or 3, one of the two. But yeah, we know Jura can fly. Literally saw it, during his introduction. And now we see Mamushi fly. So that does beg the question, does it mean that Hidari can also fly? Is it that the other Shinju can develop the ability to fly? It just takes a minute? Or is it just Mamushi and Jura? If so, why? And it's part of these questions that I have with the Awakened Shinju that don't really kind of doesn't feel like they're going to get answered, because it feels like each of them possess unique skills that aren't shared with the others. Now, I'm not talking about the ones they inherit from the person they were made from, like with Sasuke, or excuse me, with Hidari, he was made from Sasuke, so he has all of Sasuke's abilities. But I mean that they have abilities that aren't shared, even though technically all of the Shinju clones should have them. Like Hidari can create claw marks, which makes sense since they were made with Coach Chakra. But why haven't we seen any of the other Shinju clones, or even Jura, demonstrate the ability to make claw marks? They can use them, but we've never seen them actually make them. You know what I mean? So that's just something that's always kind of confused me. And now we see Mamushi fly, but we haven't seen the other awakened Shinju also demonstrate the ability to fly. So I don't know. It's one of those things that maybe it's just random. Like, we know that the people who were gifted Shibai cells, each of them awakened one of his abilities. Like, they didn't awaken all of them. So, and we know that Ada has the ability to fly. Daemon can't, even though Daemon is, without question more powerful than her. So I think it's just a matter of, like, it just depends on what you get. Like, it's a luck of the draw type thing, right? Like, you could draw and whatever you get is what you get, if you even get anything. Because we know that not everyone gifted Shibai cells gains one of his abilities. Like, Code got his claw marks, Ada got omnipotence, Daemon got reflection, and Koji got 10 directions. But the other people, the other car inner members, didn't demonstrate any ability, any of Shibai's abilities. Like, it's not guaranteed that you're going to gain one of his abilities by gaining his cells. It's like what happened with Hashirama, yeah, you can get his cells and you'll get some benefits, absolutely, but that doesn't mean you get one of his inherent abilities, like one of the abilities he was just naturally born with, like wood style or his healing ability. You know what I mean? Like, some of the people with Hashirama cells gained his healing ability and even wood style, but none of the others were able to get that. So maybe it's just a similar situation. And then we get a moment where Boruto is basically warning Mamushi that if he wants to accomplish his goal of, devouring Ada, then he needs to take care of Daemon first. Now, I was wondering, like, okay, this is interesting. Like, why is he telling him this? But then I remember that once I realized once we got to the rest of the chapter that, he's purposefully directing him towards Daemon and trying to make him ignore Ada, because if he goes after Daemon, he knows Daemon will be able to take care of him. And again, it's the whole thing of making the problem specifically isolated in one direction to make it easier to deal with, which is actually pretty clever. But we do get a moment where Mamushi, he's listening to this, where he's listening to Boruto talk about Daemon, and he's gaining like bits and pieces of Bug's memories, his experiences with Daemon, and specifically his hatred of Daemon, which we do know. We've already been told that the Shinju clones gain memories and experiences, emotions of the people they were made from. And we're seeing it here with Mamushi. And we also see Inujin, of course, helping coordinate all of this with his new mind transmission ability. And then we see, admittedly, a pretty like kind of terrifying moment where we see all of these Mamushi clones swarming towards Ada. And there's actually one shot that it actually kind of reminds me of the fight between Naruto and Sasuke, the anime. I think it was in the anime version. I don't remember if this was in the manga, but in the anime where Naruto creates multiple clones and has them all directed towards Sasuke to create that ladder, sort of like a chain of clones. It's something that's sort of similar to this. And yeah, you could just see all hundreds of them just constantly all focusing on Ada. And Ada understandably is a little bit afraid and she's running away. And the clones actually do manage to catch up to her. So they do confirm that Mamushi can fly faster than Ada, because one of them catches up to her. And of course, this is when he is hit with Daemon's reflection ability, because Daemon is touching Ada. And so his reflection ability gets transferred or is extended onto her. This is part of his ability, which was confirmed to us when Amato explained to us what his ability actually was. And we see it basically crushing him, essentially. And we see that throughout the chapter where Daemon is basically using his reflection ability to crush some of the clones. And Daemon, he's just loving this. He's loving the fight. We've known this about him for a while now, where he loves to get into a fight. He loves to just, throw his power around. And I do wonder if that's eventually going to come back to bite him at some point in the future. Like his just love for fighting is going to be the thing that probably takes him down. And yeah, he just jumps off and he's just taking care of all of the clones. Now, the next thing that I do want to talk about is what we get with Kawaki. So with Kawaki, we get something here that was essentially foreshadowed ever since he was trying to get that upgrade from Amato, where Amato was basically trying to warn him, listen, you need to take it easy with these upgrades because if you go too far, it's going to backfire on you. And we actually do see that here in this chapter where he tries to use his karma mark to launch those chakra blasts, but then immediately he begins to overheat. So he overused his ability. So basically, again, what Amato was trying to warn him ended up happening here. So Kawaki is basically out. Like he is out of the fight. He is pinned down by one of the Mamushi clones, and the others are trying to fight them off because they realize that one of their heavy hitters just got taken out. And then the next thing that I do want to talk about is definitely going to be, I think, the big moment that most people are going to be talking about when it comes to the chapter. We see Sarada essentially, according to the plan that Shikamaru came up with. So they get to the point where they reduce the numbers down to 50. And the plan was for once this happens, Sarada would use her Mangekyo Sharingan to essentially at once destroy all of the clones, all of the Mamushi clones. Now, whether this includes the original, I don't know. Like, I feel like Mamushi is the type of character to pull that type of swerve to make them think they got all of them, only to realize that one managed to get away. That's just what it feels like to me. But if this is all of them, they were close to basically winning. They were close to solving the Mamushi problem. Unfortunately, what ended up happening was something they did not expect. And it's why you have to have a backup plan, because if you only have one plan, and if something goes wrong that you didn't expect, then you're kind of screwed. You're in the situation where they are now. And Sarada, just as she's about to destroy the Mamushi clones, she essentially faints. And during one of the panels, you can actually see a close-up of her eyes and you see her pupils are whited out. So if you don't know what that means, or if you don't really remember from the Naruto manga, when Sasuke was in the process of losing his sight from overusing the Mangekyo Sharingan, we saw his eyes were starting to white out. And here is what we're seeing. We're basically seeing that with Sarada, and she's basically completely overused her power and she just faints. So she is out. So Sarada is out, and she's also very possibly completely lost her eyesight, which is insane, because if that's true, then Sarada lost her eyesight without even using her other Mangekyo Sharingan power, which, at least with Sasuke, we did get to see him use both Mangekyo Sharingan powers, but Sarada lost it before she even got a chance to use her other eye's abilities. She was only using the one, which is Ohirume, and now it's gotten to the point where she has overused it, and she's basically completely passed out. And we do see a moment where Shikamaru is asking what the hell's going on, and he is basically wondering, like, did she already use her power before? And Delta responds, well, yes, she did, in order to take care of some of the clones that were in the village. And Shikamaru realized, oh, it must have been when Amato switched off the comms, the connection between them. He didn't know that they, he didn't know what was going on, excuse me, which is, again, understandable. But yeah, so we have Sarada's out, Kawaki's out, and Boruto isn't basically responding to anything because he is too worried about Sarada. And we're basically seeing Boruto in the same situation that Naruto was in, where Naruto was so focused on Boruto being dead that he didn't even realize that there was still a threat to be dealt with. And Shikamaru was trying to talk to him, trying to get him to focus on Code, because now all they have to do is take care of Code, and that's it. It would have been, or essentially one threat would have been removed. Obviously, they didn't know that Momoshiki was going to, bring Boruto back to life by, using up the rest of this information from the karma mark to heal Boruto's, damaged organs and basically, make sure he doesn't die. But yeah, from their perspective, all that was left was Code, and then the threat would have been dealt with, which again, they don't know about a lot of the other stuff, but at that time, that was their perspective. But again, Naruto was too focused on Boruto. Again, understandable considering what was happening, but yeah, now Boruto is essentially in the same situation. He's so focused on Sarada that he isn't even realizing that he still has a threat to be dealt with when it comes to Mamushi, because now Mamushi, he doesn't have to worry about Sarada, he doesn't have to worry about Kawaki, he doesn't have to worry about, you know, basically two of their big heavy hitters. Like, they still have people there on the battlefield that can fight Mamushi, but the two who probably had, you know, like one of the most like broken abilities, or the two who had like the two most broken abilities, are now out. Basically, that they're out. Like, they can't continue with the fight. And then Mamushi goes on to basically make 1,000, yes, 1,000 clones. Now, what's interesting is we don't know what's going on with Ada and Daemon, because it seems like they just kind of disappear. Like, we don't really know what exactly happened to them after this. Because once Sarada activates her Mangekyo Sharingan ability to essentially destroy the clones, we don't see Ada and we don't see Daemon anymore. They just kind of disappeared. Now, it's possible they're still there on the battlefield, but we're just not seeing them. But yeah, it's interesting that we don't see them once all this stuff is happening. But the very last thing that I do want to talk about before I end the video, because this is already kind of going on a little bit longer than necessary. The last thing that I do want to talk about is at the very last page, we see Kashin Koji, and once again, the panel is just focusing on him, and we're not seeing the full, like his full face. Like, we're not seeing like what expression he has right now. So it is possible that Koji is planning something. It's possible he's planning something. We just don't know what it is. Now, last time this happened, his plan was to kill, what was his name? Kobu. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case now, if he has a plan that is basically going to be the kind of plan that Boruto is not going to essentially be okay with, and maybe this time he actually will succeed in enacting it, because Boruto seems like he's too focused on Sarada and her, you know, making sure that she's okay. Like, she's still alive, but she's completely unconscious, and we know that she's not going to die because we saw the update that that Koji got, and in one of them it seemed like it was a fight between Sarada and Hidari, so we know she's going to be fine. We know she's not going to die, obviously, and also we didn't even need to see that to know that she's a main character. Obviously, she wasn't going to die. So, yeah. But that's pretty much it. Like I said, there's still more to this chapter that I do want to talk about. I've got more thoughts on what actually happens in this chapter, but I'll save them for the official chapter review. I just wanted to go over some of the stuff right here. There's definitely some more going on here that I do want to talk about. But again, like I said, all of that will be saved for the full chapter review. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Thank you so much if you watched up until this point. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for joining me for this video, and I hope you guys are having a good day. And if you have any thoughts, of course, let me know about them in the comment section down below. And with that being said, I will see you guys for my full chapter review when the chapter gets released, which again, I think is on the 19th of this month. Bye for now.